for another episode. Today, I have a special guest which will help me dive into the strategical and tactical things of B2B marketing. Brighitta, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Really appreciate being here.
Yeah, likewise. I like to connect face the voice with just profiles on LinkedIn and chatting.
Yeah. So those that are unfamiliar with me, just a kind of quick intro. I have been working as a growth marketer for altogether 5-6 years, and basically my main kind of area was always to kind of build repeatable motions, because it's good to have content and ads and everything, but right now with technology, because basically we can do that more like repeatable scale. And basically what I'm doing right now is that I have my agency where we focus on these repeatable motion, whether it's automated outbound through intent and triggers, with or without the sales team, tackling the PLG motion, or more like the advertising. That's what I'm doing right now, and really excited to be in the show and deep dive into the do's and don'ts and just what generally we see in the space.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And what you said is extremely important, and I cannot emphasize that more in talking with clients or on LinkedIn or wherever it is. Like, people forget that you actually need marketing needs to build the muscle, to build the engine, and to have an engine, you need to have repeatable, scalable processes and things that you build. Right. And a lot of people forget about it. They go with one-time campaign, or they go with, we're going to do this big thing now, and they don't use it and don't build it as it is repeatable. Right. So it becomes just one-time thing, and then they do this thing one time, then the second thing one time, and it doesn't end up becoming the muscle of the company that will take basically the things that sales built and take it to another level.
Yeah, just a kind of note on that. Yeah, I think one of the key issues is that, as you mentioned, everything is like on and off instead of keeping it on a consistent level, regardless what we are talking. And I think that's the main issue when it comes to revenue, that there is sales, there is marketing, we know kind of about the two different teams together, but regardless of what teams is doing what exactly, it just can't be on and off anymore, because then you just can't fail, basically.
Yeah, and especially in this day and age when I was just talking in the episode before this one that a few years ago we didn't even have the revenue functions, right? Yeah. We had sales, we had marketing, we had customer success. We didn't even have the revenue function. And now when we do, it's who takes over that function. Is it marketing?
Yeah.
Is it sales? And also one thing that you mentioned, how it is different from growth ops and revenue ops, what the difference is, and connecting those two. There are some bad things, there are some good things. Maybe we can start with getting a little bit into that. I would like to have your overview. How do you see, because I see a lot of people, especially in LinkedIn space and in B2B, that represent themselves and we are in charge of the growth. We are doing growth. Then you have those that do revenue. Maybe we can start with just defining shortly what is growth ops, what is revenue ops, and then we maybe talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think just before going into revenue or growth ops, which I think is really the kind of same, it's just like Europe maybe use growth and North America use revenue, but I think it's basically the same, just maybe the tooling can be different. I think who should own the revenue function and how is that? Yeah, as you mentioned, sometimes there is sales, sometimes there is marketing, and sometimes maybe also there is a CRO who basically is responsible for overseeing both function. And I think it just, it's never like, okay, marketing should own it or sales should own it. I think the really good companies start to learn how to combine and unify these teams. And the reason just why, because yeah, we can think that, okay, I'm going to build a product and customers will find me, but it's barely the case, especially in the saturated market. And at the same time, if your sales reps are extremely good and they know how to do outbound, they know a lot of things that sales is supposed to be do, including social selling, it's great, but it's just so much easier if the brand is known. So we just get back to marketing. But if you just have the marketing function, then you also need to make sure that you are somehow able to make it in another scale. So I think the answer on who should own the revenue function, I think it's generally both teams, but impractically, because both leaders just can't be one leader at the same time. I think it's really maybe closer to the go-to-market function, how it looks like. So like if the company is more based on an enterprise motion, then it makes sense if the CRO coming from the sales side, just because when you are thinking about marketing to enterprise, it's a kind of different motion. Whereas if you are targeting explicitly sales, small and medium businesses or mid-market, or you are fully product-led motion, then basically you are kind of doing some kind of marketing, like if you were advertising like a B2C version, not really a kind of B2B. SMB is a kind of combination of them, or like how I like to think about that. But I think in that case, because marketing has to make sure that they are putting the brand in front of the people, and they are not able to drive that kind of relationship that a sales reps would be able to do so in an enterprise motion. I think that the answer is that the marketing, somebody from the marketing background should be the kind of the CRO in that position. So it's not really a kind of white or black. Ideally it's kind of combination, but I do think that how you sell right now and what's the motion, or where you would like to be there in the next 6 months, I think that can answer on who or which expertise or function where you could get the CRO role.
Yeah, well, very well said. I love that. Basically, depending on who you are going after, determines how do you sell, and based on how do you sell, that's how you align the departments inside the company, and
Yeah.
and who takes over the function. I like that very much. And we talked a little bit about, and I want to now get more into that. Like, there are differences between the US market and the EU market, and basically the rest of the world, right? From that perspective,
Yeah.
because and I always say, talking here in the Balkans with the startups from here and from the Europe, I work with a lot of startups from Turkey, from that part of the world. Basically, small pre-seed or early seed startup is just a company with like up to 50 people. In the
Yeah.
US, that's a company that has at least 150 people, but oftentimes even more, depending how it goes. And the roles are more differentiated, more specialized, and
Yeah.
from that perspective, also the role of marketing is totally different in the Europe and in the US, based on the stage where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting topic that you brought up, because I also worked from Europe, but I was targeting most of the time North America. So I kind of see this is, I think, the main difference first, regardless of what we are considering in the terms of team size and funding size, is I think the culture itself. And maybe it's very kind of biased option, but I do think that how you sell in US generally is way totally different to selling into Europe. And that's why certain kind of companies will say, okay, we are now in US, let's go to Europe. And they basically need a fail, because it's not that kind of just a strategy part, or like where to hire the next sales leader or marketing leader in the US or EU. But I think it's more like a cultural thing, that in Europe there are more countries. So you have to think about the localization aspect, and each country has a different selling motion and negotiation motion and marketing as well. And I think it's hard to put into practice when you are going to, basically convert one geography.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would add also, like, the funding is more available in the US, and it's easier to get the funding looking at the EU. And there are
Yeah.
also a couple of important things. And it's always important, if you work with the EU companies, that you know that it's harder to do marketing based on the regulations. I like
Yeah.
to say that Europe often shoots in their own legs when it comes to developing technology compared to the US. But in the US, there's different things and different nuances that also affects the way we go to market and the way we actually do marketing and sales. But tell me, we mentioned a little bit one way of aligning marketing and sales through
Yeah.
the revenue function, and the way we selling and how we are actually going to the market, who are we targeting. But tell me, what are some of the things that you have seen that we can say those are mistakes that marketing and sales most often make today? It's 2023, and those mistakes are, as I see it, some kind of different from the mistakes that companies have made like a few years ago, but are also at the same time the same.
Yeah, I think what I see when it comes to the mistakes is definitely like when you hire a marketing team or sales team, it should be definitely after product market fit. Of course, if you're still finding the product market fit, you need more resources because it's hard to do. Just a founder, it's hard to get there. So probably you have some kind of team members. But when I think about mistakes, there is definitely a time when you hire, significantly more people in terms in the sales and marketing team. And I think one of the biggest mistake what I see is that how the company get there was a totally different motion. Yeah, it can be founder-led sales or it can be product-led. They did some kind of marketing somewhere and people were found the product, or just really they went to refer us because maybe the founders had great networks. So basically when they are moving away this motion, they hire these people. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that teams does, and I think it's the issue, is the expectation versus reality and the communication between the marketing and sales leader and the founder, the execs, is that where we are right now, how we did that, why we are here, and what we would like to do. And what I mean by that is that a great example is that, okay, they hire these marketing and sales people, and both teams would like to implement their playbook, which means that marketing would usually think about the kind of marketing channels and the kind of playbook when they can, be proud of their work. And it's definitely not probably the enterprise motion, because if you think about like anything that is more scalable and technical is more interesting to marketing, because basically that's what you do, sales, but at scale. But when we think about the sales leader and their role, they would probably, thinking about hiring more sales rep to validate the metrics and just to scale. But when we think about the go-to-market motion, it's usually not the same, because marketing will use different kind of motions and channels, and sales, they will also do this. So what will happen is that both team leader would like to prove their playbook, and it might be totally opposite of each other. And the CEO is just there, who probably might have some commercial background or might not have, maybe very technical person. And if they are very technical person, I think the person who is more persuasive in terms of communication wins the situation. So it can happen that basically they will be going to a very kind of enterprise motion. But if the company was not going there and not were selling through enterprise, then it's a kind of like mistake, because you are not doing go-to-market differently, like compared to yesterday. It's really not a one-night success. And I think this is really kind of a big mistake, that instead of giving enough time to both teams to figure out, to scale what existing works, and then go to a different motion, I see, okay, I think we are done. We know how to, do the PLG or product sales-led motion, and now I want to go to enterprise. And basically they immediately shift everything from yesterday to tomorrow, and basically it will just result a lot of layoffs, because the teams are not there to work efficiently, and maybe the company and the product itself is not ready to do that motion. So instead of changing the direction, the strategy direction, I think one wise thing to do would be keep what works and scale that. And when you really feel that you nailed it down, then before going into another motion, you can also do this a little bit like as under the count. Like if you would like to sell to enterprise, you could talk to the potential customers, you can validate the product, you can do a kind of lot of tests. And if you are able to, do that on your existing base, then you can go to enterprise and change the go-to-market in a different direction. So overall, I think the big mistake is that they change the strategy too fast before they are ready, from people, process, or tooling side, or basically instead of taking charge of what really worked and scaling, they just hire two leaders who will have, of course, different KPIs, and one will short-term, one will long-term, and they just start to fight to prove both of them are good, and probably they are good, but one direction can be more relevant, one go-to-market motion, stick to it, and the other team should support that motion. And it's not like, okay, maybe it's not like about like, okay, you are kind of a bad person or your skill is not there. It's just one motion should define and would be the core of the business, and the other team just should support it. And maybe it may be marketing will be the driver, or maybe the sales will be the driver, but usually it starts with one. So let's scale that, and let's learn how to work together, and then we can go to another motion where we see it's a more lucrative segment.
Yeah, you said a lot of stuff, but I want to go back to one of the things that you said, it can be one thing and it can be the other thing that starts first. How many times do we see that it starts with marketing? Usually that doesn't happen. Usually it starts with sales, because like B2B
Yeah,
companies are most of the time sales companies. They understand sales. Not many
yeah,
of them understand marketing that
marketing.
well.
Yeah,
And the thing that can be better in those that are like product led and focus on the product is that, in most of those companies, product teams are just inbound led. They don't look outbound, which means
yeah,
there's no marketing that follows the product, right? There's no storytelling. There's no defined ways in which we use data to tell the stories about the product, about the features, about the different things. And I mean, those are things that are changing and they're more challenging now. I think like a month or 2 months ago that Airbnb said that their product is now going into direction. So internally and out and looking on the outside, that changes things, right? Because
yeah,
usually product is stuck in, we're going to do project management as well. We're going to do different things, but that's not actually what product should do. And from that perspective, you mentioned one of the things that I want to now tackle when we talk about the differences and how we, mistakes that marketing and sales are making, actually the companies with marketing and sales. The key is in alignment, right? Making an alignment between these two. But how can we actually create an engine that basically consists of marketing and sales and further from that customer support that will actually help us move from one to one, which is sales, when we actually prove the through the customer research, through talking to the customers, do we have the right fit? How do we go to the point where we go one to many, when we actually build the engine inside the company that will take us to take over the market that we are targeting?
yeah. I think one example that I can mention here, really practically, is when we talk about outbound. The reason why is because there are different scenarios how things work together. Like sometimes marketing just gives some kind of context that they can do after the call or can use the sequences. But I think it's kind of very old way of doing these things. And the reason just why is because with the new kind of tools, and I'm not saying it's bad or good, but that's the kind of fact. It's changed. It's changed totally. Like how we think about outbound. Like 50 years ago, ads were creepy, like the personalized ads. That okay, why I would like to give permission to Google or anything, Facebook to show me interested, maybe those kinds of ads that I would be interested in. And I do think that right now with outbound the same thing's happening. It has been already very very saturated. And when it comes to how these teams could do together, is definitely like okay, if we are like selling right now an enterprise motion, then yeah, marketing should definitely support how when the sales reps are reaching out certain accounts that they ideally should know the brand name and what they are kind of representing. But at the same time, if you are going to, if you would like to, besides enterprise, you would like to also bring in the SMB and mid-market companies, then you probably don't want to assign a sales rep because your ACV is just not going to be too high. So it will be hard for sales team and as well as marketing, whoever owns the BDR and sales function, to validate why I need an extra headcount on that. Because for a deal size of 3,000, then and you are expecting a sales rep to work on that account, it just can be very 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 costly at the same time, and maybe the ROI won't be there. So I think one great example is that in ideally we know a lot of things about our ICP. We know where they are hanging out. We already see some kind of channels are working, from content, ads, or pure inbound. And I think how I really like about thinking about this way is that if we are selling to mid-market or SMB, you can basically use the technology and data to tell you who are the best prospect and the company that sales should focus on converting. And right now with the technology and the different kind of triggers, people give you a lot of digital footprint and digital events, like what the kind of post that I'm tracking, or if I'm being promoted. These are definitely the kinds of times when I would like a sales rep to reach out to those companies. And the reason why is because there are a lot of things that happening like digitally and not able to learning from that. And when it's the really right time to advertise to those companies or to send a contact or just send an outreach email, I think it's a kind of big mistake because the data is there. It's either in our CRM or different kind of tools. It's just the execution part but it's doable right now. It's doable to find these data at scale, these events, and basically do an outreach based on that, or maybe later if the account is reached a certain has reached a certain kind of score, it's again the execution. But I think the main flow or idea how these two things could work together is that when is the best time to outreach, what are the data points we can use there, without account scoring, lead scoring, what kind of content could be genuinely relevant to my persona, not meaning the internal pitch deck, but like anything that is written by external influencers that if I would send to you, you would find it helpful. And once it was there, then the execution part, okay, do I want sales reps to work on these accounts, or I would like to do the automation part? And if the answer is the automation part, it's not that you are going to send mass emails without any kind of relevancy, because again, with this data, with ChatGPT, with Python, or basically anything, any kind of tool, you can make it really personalized, because again, the same is happening in outbound that happened in ads. So it's not anymore like I'm just downloading a list of companies and sending some random emails. It's not that anymore. With data, you can be really highly personalized. And at the same time, you can also use this data to give as many contacts to the sales reps as possible. So instead of a sales rep focusing on the researching part, which can be totally automated, they can see, okay, these are the accounts, these are all kinds of insights. I know what Bridget did yesterday, what he consumed, what kind of tools he's using. So the rep can, focus on the creative part if they run the price motion. So in this way, both marketing and sales are actively participating in a mutually owned channel, which is a great way because you can tackle enterprise and you can also go after the mid-market in a very efficient way from unit economics wise, and both can learn a lot about market and how they can collaborate together, what content drives what thing, what are the events, digital events that is relevant in the company and the prospect's life cycle. And those insights can also channel back a lot to sales and marketing, and can open new channels as well as advertising, or just refine the existing strategy.
Yeah, so you said a lot, but let me just go over those things. So basically, you need to get as many information as possible about your
Yeah.
target customers, about your ICP, create the content which is actually helpful and educational, and not going, spamming people directly in their inbox and
Yeah.
say, hey, dear sir, dear madam, dear sir,
Yeah.
with S, as it
Yeah.
usually happen. But instead, start a relationship sort of with them, with offering them help and support on their way to the moment when they decide to buy. And when you offer them something, it is something that that they need in exactly that moment. And today, in the times we are living, we have the technology which actually enables us to have those information. And what I would like to add is there's no excuse today to kind of not use all of that to actually guide the customers to the moment when they buy, right? If you decide to ignore that, okay, but that's something which is totally different. Tell me one thing: how many companies that you are talking and working with are actually talking to the customers instead of just using intent data and now ChatGPT to also find some of the things, and they actually make things easier, right? I saw yesterday from one of my previous guest travel, Longino,
Yeah.
the post when he said, I actually asked GPT to kind of act like my ideal customer and give me the answer to the customer survey, right? What would they say? So you can use that from in that way, but I would like to know, what do you see, how many of them actually talk to their customers regularly? I mean, on a monthly level, because I see that in the companies that I'm talking with, that's not happening. They usually don't have the
Yeah.
routine. For some reason, they don't want to follow up, and some of them didn't even ask for a feedback for like 2 years. Both sides are satisfied, but they didn't ever ask like, oh, what are you actually satisfied with? you
Yeah.
know so
Yeah.
let me hear your experience.
Yeah, I think I would say it's okay. My kind of clientele that I'm working with, they kind of have more regular talks with the customers, but I see there are two kinds of things that they are missing. And one is that you also outlined is they either don't have the process or they are talking with the same kind of customers again, because there was always champions, which is great, but champions, you will also get, positive insights because that's why they are champions. But at the same time, there are a lot of the people probably in your customers base where you should kind of figure out that why they are not satisfied. Or maybe, your messaging is also outdated. It can be outdated inside the product or outside the product, or your own podcast, webinars, advertising, whatever. And I think that's why everybody should have a better process to talk with their existing customers, because you can redefine a messaging. And I think it's sometimes a big mistake from marketing not to be more involved in this, or not to suggest that, hey, here is how I think we should think about like marketing or like the customer marketing. Because sales, they talk at the top of the funnel, the prospects, but like what happens after them when we close the door, when they are using or they are not using us, or they are using but medium level, then those kinds of pain points and challenges that should be mirrored basically on your website and messaging. And for that, for sure, there can be a better process and a better collaboration with not just the sales, but the customer success or customer support, or if it's more product, but basically with data to see really what's going on. Should I redefine the messaging, or maybe AI can also help a lot, at least later, to see maybe what are the other segments that I'm not talking, and it could be kind of relevant. I heard some kind of stories when basically they were really aligned, all teams were aligned that who is the ideal customer, and basically they built their internal AI tool that not just scored the accounts and these kinds of more traditional way, but it suggested new market segments. And while it's obvious that we can define who is your ICP, maybe the market is changing so fast that there is also another lucrative business or other personas you just didn't thought of. Or maybe you can also find cross-sell and upsell opportunities just by talking to the customers.
Yeah, those are all valid points. One thing I would also like to just to add to that is you need to talk to the customers. You need to look at intent data that you have now available on different platforms. One of those is like Enrich. I'm working a lot with them, so I always want to shout out. But one thing is you need to know your customers. The goal of this is to get to know your customers better than they know themselves, right? Usually they are not the ones that will give you the answers that you are looking for, right? You need to get to know them even better, because they maybe don't know that the feature exists or that you're building something, but you need to know why you are building something, and you get that vibe from them, right? You need to recognize the chances and where you are and how are you solving problems, specific problems for specific target group. And I think that's one of the things people most of the time go over, and they don't think about it, right? So they won't give me all the answers. I need to do my homework as well from my side. And talking about that, I want to go into a little bit the topic that you also tackle, messaging, and connected to that also like personalization, automation, because my background was in performance marketing, and I work in an agency which was focusing on marketing automation, website personalization, email marketing, those kind of stuff. And back in the days, it was like automation works while you sleep, right? And performance works while you sleep, but it works until you have the budget. Then it's something else. And basically, we got into this era now when I'm seeing the newsletters and email follow-ups and those are the things when personalization basically for a lot of companies means just having a person's name and the name of the company, which is actually not personalization. Right, so I know you like to speed up things and automate whatever you can and use different kind of tools. So maybe we can dive a little bit into those things.
Yeah, I think on that part, one thing that I would add the personalization part is maybe one thing is more important than personalization. And I think that can answer that what we consider bad and good personalization is the relevancy, like how I can be more relevant to my clients, to my customers, regardless if it's an email flow, if it's outbound or ads, like when it's the good time to reach out and what's the right message to do that. Because we can think about the different kind of funnels, but I think it's kind of deep knowledge that we can cover, like how we are thinking about that. But I think if we look at the data and we can use this as account insights, triggers, intent data, I think basically they are all the kind of same, or the output is the kind of same, but they basically tell you like, okay, what should be the kind of next step. And I think that's the next step that is important, that, okay, should I, send another email, or should I do advertising better. And as you mentioned, the first name, company name, and whatever these kinds of data points is not real personalization. One thing, because you can mass personalize that. And the second is it didn't work in the past, and definitely it's not working anymore. So how I like thinking about is that what is the relevant thing that you can say. For example, if I know that you are, scrolling and engaging with my posts, like as a company, like very frequently, or you are, hiring a new marketing leader, then it tells me a story. Like you are probably doing something, and the reason why you are hiring a new marketer or a head of marketing is because you would like to, scale the team, or this is the first time when you basically would like to actually scale marketing at all or build the foundations of marketing. And I think these are the kind of insights that really feeds a lot in terms of marketing and sales. And the challenge is just really who wants what again. But I think that's the way to go, to use all these insights that are available on the company and on the prospect side and feed the different kind of system. Again, with ads right now, there are a lot of tools that you can really use to personalize the content, regardless of how you define the top of the funnel or bottom of the funnel and what content you have. But you can personalize that. And then email, you can also be more relevant, because while advertising lets you define, okay, this is the kind of content that I would like to push in these kinds of accounts and prospects. In email, you can go a little bit deeper with and without the sales reps.
Yeah, that's very well said. I'll leave something else to add for a little bit later, but I want to kind of tackle the topic of content creation and using AI for those things, right? We are living in the times when basically Google searching transforming into big AI chat, when people will type and get the answers right away. We talked about how YouTube is also becoming the #1 search place based on that. But one thing I want to get into, coming up with the written content these days. And a lot of companies, especially in B2B, do that. That's the first motion, because they don't need to record anything. They don't need to have their face or the voice seen. And it's kind of easier, right? So we're going to go with the written content. And often the things that happen, people now use AI to produce the content, which is now the content which is not personalized, doesn't have a voice, doesn't have maybe the relevant data. And we get to the point when actually we mentioned, I think, like more than 10 times in this episode, the data. So we need to get the data and give the right prompts to AI, but also do the research before we start going into the articles and coming up with the specific content. Because from my perspective, it's okay to come up with using AI to write the article, but we need to know the outlines. We need to do the research before that. We need to know the brief. What do we want to get out of the article? And when we do it like that, it becomes much easier, and AI becomes just an assistant to the writer from that perspective. How do you see those things?
Yeah, I think it's great that we also have some tools right now that can help us producing content, because it's kind of massive thing if you want to make sure that you have different kind of formats. I think very similar to what we see as a sales and basically anything side is that it's good if you also have a human behind it who can fine tune those certain kinds of things. And I think one really interesting thing slash trend that I'm seeing and is definitely that how you can put people behind these kinds of brands, because I think B2B, but I think B2C as well, is that it's kind of gone are the days when just you created a kind of case study and way that it will work. I think really good kind of thing that is happening right now, and more companies adapting, is that how I can use AI to produce those kinds of messaging and those kinds of content that is really relevant to my person, and how I am as a person and the company and the employees can put a face behind it too. Because if you think about the general B2B motion, of course you can research on Google and you can click on advertising, or you can be prospected by a sales rep, but you always trust more when you get a referral. But that's kind of hard to scale, right? But at the same time, how you also build trust is definitely a content that is genuinely helpful for the persona. And usually you associate content with people right now in the B2B. If you really see the big brands, they not just have a nice logo and maybe some kind of animal or whatever they are thinking as part of their brand image, But there are also a lot of employees who are also using their social media and LinkedIn and the other channels to, be not just a brand, but a person behind the brand. And I think what we really like about AI is that I think every people, and especially the C-level execs, should be also kind of close to a little bit tough leaderish on their scene, because that's how we buy. We not just produce content, but as a buyer, we also consume a lot of content. We also, of course, compare a lot of things through different kind of review sites and referrals, but we do consume content. If we want to buy people through content, we also have to be not just in the ads on the personalized side, but how we can also present ourselves as a people and make it really human and use content as a part of their strategy, which is not easy to scale. Tough leadership for sure, but it's not like just random kind of webinars, podcasts, and content. I think we gone beyond that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think everybody needs to adjust to that and to accept that. Now we have this point that is not easy, and we are in IT, in tech, and there are a lot of people who are like introverts who cannot do the speaking thing, who cannot be entertaining, and that can be an issue, especially when we look at the shift is going to the search on YouTube, and YouTube is entertainment, right? We have education, but we have also entertainment. And, like videos like this one in, I don't know, in 6 months or even a year, I don't think they're going to be relevant. It's going to be relevant to somebody who is listening to the audio, right? But for the video, we need to, at least sit in a limo and talk about things, right? So
Yeah.
it can be more interesting to the people. But one thing I think companies can leverage is including the evangelists or influencers, however do we call them now in B2B, and leverage different opinions. Because, okay, we have the text about this subject, we wrote it, we use AI, we use insights, we use a lot of different things, we check the data, and now we can use a post of our leaders. It can be the CEO, it can be the CMO, it can be somebody from sales, and we kind of align a part of that post, and we tag a few people who are in the niche, who are relevant speakers on that, thought leaders, and we ask them, what do you think? So they give us the opinion inside the comments. We gather that data, we add it to the article, and then basically we include them inside the article. We create the content with them, give the additional layer to the content. And oftentimes, what we can do additionally, if we have somebody who can create videos, those kind of things, we can even invite them to have a short conversation about that topic and add the video to it. Or that can be an upgrade of the blog post, right? We can just post the article, invite people to comment, and we can upgrade the article as well. All depends how things are structured. What I like to do usually is, as the ChatGPT or Jasper, I was using Jasper for 2.5 years now, 3. I don't know, I ask him, give me an outline of 10 to 50 topics on some of the things, and then I go and I write 50 posts on those things from my perspective, maybe using the data that I have, and I post it on LinkedIn, and I tag a couple of people in the comment, ask them about their opinions, basically use all that to kind of come up with the article. And then based on the topics, for example, I'm recording this episode with you, I will take the things that you said about automation, about personalization in that article, when this is the place for that, and actually link the episode, right? Tag you as well, use one quote of you to actually have more diverse article and come up with unique article that nobody else has. Because basically in the times that we are living, it's about, having a unique perspective instead of just doing as much content as possible.
Yeah, I think the last sentence is very important, the quality over quantity, because I think when it comes to AI, maybe a lot of people can fall into the trap, okay, now with AI, we can mass produce content. And I don't think that, you really need to send 2 newsletters every single week or 2 blog articles every single week. I think it's more about what are the main key topics in my conversation and how I can add value in a more unique way. Because just if you think about, let's say, marketing, okay, personal brand building or I don't know, advertising, we can produce a lot of content from different kind of angles. But I think the key question is that what is really audience is really interested in and where they are in terms of mindset, meaning how advanced they are, because maybe we are more advanced than our buyers. And then it's very hard to make sure that our content, pushes them to move forward or, gets the desired attention. But at the same time, if we think about the opposite, is like what are the kind of unique ways we can add value, and they also find value inside. Because yeah, just asking AI to write another blog post is definitely not the way to go. So definitely over quality than quantity. And I think that might be good that, okay, if we have a content marketing team, okay, we have these kinds of articles and these kinds of ideas, let's first just prioritize, listen to the other kind of calls, sales calls, customers calls, whatever, what are the kind of titles that came inbound of, and what are the kind of main topics that really happened in the last 2 weeks, not in the last 1 year, because that's not going to be relevant. And based on that, we can really fine tune the messaging and can move away from too much content instead of few content, but is really relevant in my industry, or just, as you mentioned, just sometimes updated. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, because that's also something that can happen too much. Probably we don't need all the time to reinvent the wheel, just tweak the main angle, or just add another kind of perspective that happened a few weeks ago or a few months ago and relevant to my persona.
Yeah, I totally agree. And basically, I was thinking, where do we actually go to get educated about B2B marketing, right? So
Yeah.
if we go to the Google and we Google things, for example, like demand generation, those are all things which are not relevant today. Things change so much in a couple of last years. We changed the way we buy in B2B based on maturity of the internet. And so we go to LinkedIn, of course, where there's a lot of people, so you need to know which things you're going to follow, which things you're going to exclude. We go to the podcasts like this one, like, I don't know, like Chris Walker, Refine Labs. There are a lot of great podcasts on B2B marketing when people get in depth and we have time to dive deeper into the topics. And also, like, maybe go into the smaller communities where we also get to ask people, get to also hear the insights and go through that. And based on that, what you said, if you can always tweak your articles, add the up-to-date information, relevant things, they can be useful. Or if you are already deciding to writing articles, no matter what, you can go and actually have only the evergreen content on the website, something that is over there for a long time. For example, like the first article on the Funky Marketing blog was how do you create the B2B marketing engine? So basically how to create content and do the content distribution. It's over there with the video, with explanation, with the graphics, anything. Not many companies, we are now entering the 2024, not many companies have figured that out, those things, because a lot of those things needs to be done manually, especially when it comes to distribution. And so if companies cannot automate it or just schedule it, they don't do it. Those are all kind of things. But tell me, we talked about a lot of things today and really enjoy going from topic to topic and talk about different stuff. But tell me, what's one thing that you want people to get out of the episode? What's on top of your mind, Brown?
Yeah, there are two things, which is basically the same, is that I think everything can be operationalized. And what I mean by that, like if you have an advertising channel that is the number one bringing the most closed revenue, you can scale it. The same happens with content as well. And I think my main takeaway from this episode is, do think about your engines, your channels, the top 2, 3, and try to make it operationalized instead of just adding a new one. Just make sure you can double down on that. And I think the real reason how you can double down on that is making sure that you have more data around it and try to operationalize it. Content distribution, as you mentioned, you can do it outbound with right now with AI, with a lot of data gathered on the company and prospects away. You can do it, and the execution just sort of kind of the go-to-market motion. So one main takeaway is that instead of doing too much, I think right now with the technology, you can really operationalize a lot of kind of channels, which gives you more bandwidth to think about the strategical levels and have more time on the big things. Why rest is ongoing through automation, or just doing everything more like on an operationalized manner and not just back and forth on and off.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. Now, guys, we talk fast and we say a lot of things. So now is the moment in the episode when I tell you to stop, go to the beginning of the episode, listen to everything again, stop in specific parts, reach out to Brighitta if she needs to explain a couple of things again, or reach out to me as well. Brighitta, tell me two things for the end. First one is, what's in the future for you? What are the next things that you are focusing on? And also, where can people actually reach out to you?
Yeah, so what are the things that I'm focusing on? Is definitely, as you might have called, I'm really expert in growth marketing and automated outbound motions. And what I mean, again, automated is not the very irrelevant kind of messaging at scale, but really how to use data to power your go-to-market motion. So if somebody is interested in me, feel free to connect me on LinkedIn or just check growthtoday.co. And the next thing that I'm focusing on is my really main goal is I see a lot of kind of things in the space, and I really like to productize all these kinds of things. So right now I'm managing my consulting agency business, but I think the next step is to have not just as a kind of expert in this space, but give the people the right tool, because it's not really there. ChatGPT is just on the way, AI is on the way, but I do think there are a lot coming in this space, and I will definitely love to be on there and hope that I can bring something to the table to those that are interested in leveling up, not just from expert side, but something more actionable they can really take into their everyday life.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm rooting for you and following the journey. And I'll be here to support in any way possible. Guys, go ahead, find Brighitta on LinkedIn, check out the website, make sure to reach out. Let's see if anybody who is listening this actually reaches out and tells to Brighitta that they heard about her on the Funky Marketing podcast. That would be nice. But also, don't forget to subscribe. Brighitta, thank you for taking the time, for being here and chatting with me about all different kind of topics. Hopefully, we'll do that again in a couple of months, and maybe we'll hear you start to build a product already. Who knows what the future brings.
It was, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks again, Nemanja, for being here. And I hope I really enjoyed. And yeah, feel free to reach out to both of us for further information, and just subscribe to Nemanja's podcast so you won't miss any kinds of new episodes going in the B2B marketing space.
Yeah, listen to Brighitta and keep it funky. That's always what we say at the end. Bye bye, guys.
Bye, guys.